Boards and booze, booze and boards, drinks and beers, fight some hordes. Drank too much, forgot our swords, ran back home, filled our gourds, got drunk again, sang some chords. Boards and booze and boards, with Mickey and Jeb.
Mickey! Excalibur has been stolen! The Mona Lisa? I don't know where it is anymore! We gotta find it!
What is wrong with you?
Professor Evil, he left his calling card! We have to find it!
Professor Evil! Is that what we're playing today?
No.
Oh.
Yes, it is, Mickey. Professor Evil and the Citadel of Time.
Nice.
Yeah.
So excited. So excited. We got to test this one
Where
at
did we test that? Okay.
Origins. A bazillion years ago, it feels like. This was supposed to be out earlier. It was on pre-order. And then they had a manufacturing problem. And I was very sad because I saw it multiple times before it actually shipped to me. Jeb and I did get to test this out at Origins. It was probably our favorite game that we tested. Mm-hmm. We're hoping that it lives up, that it wasn't just a fluke on when we played it, that we still like it now. This literally just came in as of this recording yesterday, and hopefully it'll live up to how we felt about it when we sat down and played it the first time. In general, what you're doing with this game is it's a complete co-op, like Jeb was hyping up at the beginning. Professor Evil has stolen certain artifacts, and he's put them in the Citadel of Time. There's a timer mechanic. Everybody has a different character. They have different powers, and you're trying to break into the Citadel to gain the artifacts back. You have to avoid a bunch of traps. You have to avoid him. He has unique movements. The game has unique timer system. You have unique powers. There's just a lot of going on. If it sounds like this is a lot, what makes it even more unique is it actually plays quick.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, I think we were surprised with all the stuff that the guy was telling us, that when you sit down and play, you're actually like, I'm going to plot, I'm going to try to do this, see if it's successful. Hopefully it is. If you strategize right, hopefully you can get out of there before the bad stuff happens. There's a win condition for him. He's all AI, so you don't have to, nobody has to control him.
All the players it's a co-op game, so you're all working together. You can scheme, plan everything out.
Co-op, there's, the artwork's really nice.
It's Funforge is who put it out. What is that, 30 to 45 minutes?
Yep, so again, like I said, we talked about all this stuff, but again, the game can be played in under an hour. And it has 8+. Now, that actually sounds like a reasonable rating with some of the other stuff that we read to you guys that say like 10, 12, 14. Now, granted, maybe it's because this doesn't have a horror theme or something, but that actually really sounds reasonable for the age on this, and it being a co-op, yet having a bad guy working in it is kind of right up our aisle. So again, we'll be back in a minute to show you component setup and gameplay, and then we'll play a full round, and hopefully it lives up to our expectations, because at this point it's been, close to 6 months at least, right?
Since we played it.
Yeah, since we got to our initial playthrough. So hopefully we didn't do a bad thing, because actually both of us bought this game. And
just a quick shout out, Brett Gilbert and Matthew Dunstan are the designers or creators. It doesn't say, but
if Funforge doesn't ring a bell, Citadel is a huge game, same publisher. So hopefully it's still good.
We're hyped about it.
Yeah, we're hyped. Like I said, I hope it's not one of those things that we were just like enamored at the time and we don't play it again and let down. So you guys are going to see us you know, play it for the second time, being owners of the game this time, and hopefully the other people that play it with us will like it too, and so you'll find that out when we review it.
Yep. All right, so we're back for components of Professor Evil and the Citadel of Time.
Dun dun dun!
Such an epic name. First thing, as you can already see, is the game board. So, I don't know if you want to talk about some of the stuff on the board.
Yeah, real quick, we'll go over it because it'll come into gameplay part of it. So, there's the Citadel. Let's start from this side. These are lost treasures, so what you're going to see is that the professor steals stuff, and that's where he puts his. These are saved treasures, and that's where you guys, as the heroes, put the treasures that you've collected. Alright, the game board. You can see the different rooms. They're very colorful.
They have their names on them.
They have their names right on them. This is the clock in the center. There are 3 entrances on this board game, and that's where the windows are. So here's an entrance here, an entrance here, and an entrance here. Those are the only places you can come into the Citadel. Notice that each room has a set of carpet. For instance, greenhouse, a green and a blue, ballroom, red, green, and blue. That's important. The other components that are important are these dotted lines. The longer rectangle is where you're going to maybe place a treasure, and the stubby one is where what do they call them, traps? Yes. Oh, traps in the game. And each of these will be filled with something.
Switches.
Switches.
Right. For the clock in the middle, there are 2 spots that have this blue card with an arrow on it, and that comes to play with flipping over your character ability. Right. So and just note that those are there.
And it is literally numbered like a clock. Noon is here, 6 is here, 3 and 9.
Alright, so I think we're good showing all that.
Alright.
So next up are the 5 character tiles. So these are the characters the players can pick from to be. And I think on the back has their...
Back is special ability.
Yep.
And that is what Jeb was talking about on those flipping spaces on the clock. You may or may not be able to flip your hero during the game.
And we should probably say that the top half is their permanent ability, and the bottom half is a one-time use that usually ends up flipping the card back over.
Right. So, real quick recap. The top, as soon as you flip this over, it goes into effect. It's never in effect like that. So until you get to flip a card, you have no abilities. Alright? So once it's flipped, you always have the top, bottom, one-time use, just like Jeb said.
Next up are the action cards that go with each hero.
Right. And for example, who is that guy? We are going to Leroy Johnson. Alright, so Leroy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He gets 6 cards, and guess what? Everybody else has 6 cards. So that is what Leroy or whoever plays Leroy will start with, and this is what they look like on the back. Nice artwork. You know, very easy to read too. Nice big font on these. And each character, again, has 6 cards.
And then there are the character standees. So there's a standee for each person.
There's 3 of them.
And then there is a Professor Evil standee as well. And he has the black base.
Dun dun dun!
Alright.
This is what you do to me all the time!
I know.
Why is it funny?
It's funny because there's nothing on the screen, and then you go bum bum bum, and it's this tiny little standee.
That's classic, man. It's going to be great.
Next up are the 6 treasure markers. The 2 sets of each.
Alright, so these are treasure markers. So on the board, at all times, you'll have 3 treasures. One of these markers goes on the treasure, to identify what color the treasure is. One of these goes on the clock to identify if Professor Evil ever gets to that marker, that's the treasure he's going to take.
Time remaining for him to catch it.
Right. So one on the treasure, one on the clock. That's how those work. And then the other
clock marker
is the clock marker,
yeah.
And that's like Professor Evil again.
And that only goes on the clock.
I will bring it in again like I should have. Dun dun dun! There he is. Not
I think because the colors are there.
But I was trying to be.
I know.
I was trying to be dramatic, and
you get points
Jeb,
for trying.
Jeb liked it the first time, and then I let him down. All right.
So next up are the locked doors.
They are literally pieces of black wood. I will slide this over real quick. Locked doors go on doors.
Yep.
Like
there's
that.
dotted lines in between.
Yep.
Or
You'll
where
see
the
that.
door would be.
You'll see that more in setup, but basically that's to represent so you can open and close a door. Whee!
Yep. Then there are the treasure tiles.
All right, treasure tiles. Treasure tiles are interesting because they provide a wealth of information on them. So real quick, they're all different. The first thing you might notice is a great big number. Now the number is how many minutes away from this marker do you place its treasure marker. So for instance, let's just say that we're replacing blue or putting blue on the board for the first time. So wherever he is on the clock, this goes 30 minutes away from him.
Yep.
If that doesn't make sense right now, it will as soon as we show you on the board.
Yep.
All right. So just remember that these big numbers at the top are how many minutes away from this marker the chip goes. Other information on it is the name of the artifact that you're trying to, or treasures rather, that you're trying to save. And then the last thing on them, these symbols are what switches you have to have deactivate before you're able to even take this this treasure. So they all have to be off before you can use an action to take these.
And if you flip one of those over, or a couple of them, they all have the same back. You actually will be making a pile of these and
Right.
shuffling it. So
Yeah, you don't get to see what's coming up.
right. Next up are the switch tiles.
And they represent the switches that you have to turn off throughout the game, like I was telling you about. Now the information on the switches, there's a symbol for what kind of switch it is down here.
And the color that kind of goes with it as well.
Kind of goes with it too, alright? The dot up here is green, so that means it's on. If you flip it over, it has a big off. And the other important information that is actually a really nice feature
Yeah.
is that this number down in the corner tells you how many of those switches are in the game. It's always the same amount, but it's really nice to have that reminder because you're like, oh, wait a second, how many of those am I looking for when you're looking at a treasure? So in other words, I have this over here. I'll put out a lock too, alright? And I know I have locks, keypad, and the lasers to turn off, alright? So I can immediately look at any laser and know that I have 2 of those to turn off. Look at a keypad, I have 1 of those to turn off, and if I look at the lock, I have 4 of those to turn off. So it was just a really nice, instead of trying to hunt everything down every single time, you can just look at it. Now you will have to hunt everything down to see what's on and what's off already.
So the last thing for components is the 3 dice.
It's not the last thing, but okay.
Wow. So there's the professor die, which is the white one. And then the color die, which is the other white one. And the clock die, which is the black one.
Alright, so this is going to tell you what the professor's going to do. This is going to tell you what color is involved in that. And this tells you how far around the clock marker moves. Okay, so there's either 1s or 2. This has got all 3 colors on it, so 50-50 chance of hitting any color. That mark tells you how many spaces the professor moves. So there's a 1, a 2, a 3. That moves treasure, right?
Yes.
That moves a treasure 5 minutes closer.
Yep.
whatever this rolls. So if that was green, it would move green 5 minutes closer. That would move 10 minutes closer. And then the last one is basically the
I think it's like a secret passage.
secret passage, teleport, call it whatever you want, but the professor moves into the room with the treasure matching the color die.
Yep.
So if it was that, he'd move into the room with the blue treasure. Alright? And the thing that Jeb forgot was the actual treasure cards.
I completely forgot about those.
Yeah, he forgot about those. Yeah. But basically these are the randomizers to place the treasures, that's all.
So there's one for each room, and
Right.
it tells you the room. Okay, so we're back with setup. The first thing you're going to do is prepare the board for setup. So I guess we begin by placing the board in the middle of the table, which makes sense. Next, you're going to put the Professor Evil standee in the laboratory.
Laboratory. I forget where it is.
Purple.
Pointing, purple. Laboratory. That's a tight one. We'll just stick him there.
And you're going to put the clock marker on the space marked 12 on the main clock.
Alright.
Okay. Then you are going to place a locked door on each of the 18 doorways.
These come on and off throughout the game, so just keep the pile within reach of at least somebody. Alright, so all doors are on.
Alright, so that's everything for preparing the board. Next you're going to prepare the switches. So what you're going to do is shuffle the 12 room cards in a pile face down. And this is called the room deck. Place it face down next to the board.
We're gonna do it here for now.
Yep.
We're gonna move this off to the side, and once we're done showing you.
And then shuffle the 12 switch tiles and put them in a stack.
Alright, and then it doesn't really matter once you shuffle these, because it doesn't really matter that you can see them, because what's going to happen next, Jeb's going to tell you.
Draw the first 6 room cards of the room deck and place one switch tile in each room on the off side. These are the deactivated switches.
Alright, okay, so first room, library gets an off switch, so just take the first switch, boom. 2, the ballroom. And that switch is off again, remember? So remember 6 of these. Study. We're on 4, the parlor. And 5, the greenhouse. And last but not least, the gallery. And this is what Jeb was talking about, that they kind of color coded it to it helps once you realize the little tricks that they did. It really helps to set up. Look, that matches. Greenhouse is blue. That matches. So your eyes can just kind of. I had 2 options for blue: entrance hall and greenhouse. So once you learn that they did that stuff, the hunting becomes a little less cumbersome.
And then the next thing you're going to do is draw the last 6 room cards and place the switches on the on position.
So trophy room, cellar, workshop, entrance, laboratory, and vault.
Alright, so that's everything for preparing the switches. Next we're going to start placing the treasures. So it has a note about your first game, recommends removing the treasures marked with 55 since they're difficult to rescue.
If you've played games before, I would say you can skip that, but if you're more like a light game player, you might want to try it, or if this is like you're new to gaming or whatever, I wouldn't say that it's 100% necessary, although I will say that if you like winning, you might want to try it that way. So we're just gonna do the whole stack, and not worry about removing the. Is it just the 55s or 50 and 55?
For your next games, you can increase difficulty by adding these treasures. You can also remove the treasures marked 30. So
Gotcha.
depends if you want to play it that way. But.
Yeah.
All right, so placing the treasures. First, you're going to shuffle the treasure tiles and place them face down in a stack, like
Which I
Mickey
just
did.
did.
Then you're going to reshuffle all the 12 rooms.
Which I did.
And then flip the top room card. Then reveal the top treasure and place it in that room.
Alright, so we got right with the Professor Evil.
So we flip this, and it is the crown jewels. So we'll place that here.
Alright, and we're just going to... I think it actually...
It starts with red, but
it starts
doesn't...
with red. It doesn't... Honestly, really doesn't matter. So, again, token on that.
I usually cover the number after you...
I'm just doing that to let
Yeah.
you see it. I do the same thing as Jeb just said. I just cover the number because it fits there nicely. Thought you guys might want to see, though. That's a 50. But now I am going to cover it. So, anyways, he's on 12, so it's... You don't have to do the whole counting thing if you can't math, and put it right there for 50 minutes away.
Yep. And then you're going to do this 2 more times for the other colors and other treasures. So the entrance hall is going to get the golden idol. So put that there. It's 30 minutes away.
30 minutes away, so that goes there.
And then the last one, Rosetta Stone,
Goes in the vault.
and it's 45.
Alright, so we got a 45 there, and the blue on that. And then...
And it says to leave those in the discard pile.
Right.
Alright, next up is choosing a character. So each player gets to choose a character. You get to place the character tile face down in front of them, and you get their 6 action cards, shuffling those into a deck, and just forming the deck. Then you get to place your standee anywhere outside the castle, and all the characters not being used are removed from the game.
Right. So, you can do characters however you want. If somebody's fighting over it, flip for it, whatever. It doesn't really matter how you do it. You can select from any of them, read their powers. It doesn't matter. I'll take the top deck here, which is Leroy, just as an example. So I have Leroy's deck there, and so Leroy and his card. And Leroy is the ruler of switches. So if it's the first time, you got a group of people that haven't played, as they're looking for their character, tell them, obviously have them turn it over. And in Leroy's case, my special ability, if I get to flip it, is I may always move into the room with the professor and never flee the castle if the professor moves into your location. My superpower is, in addition, on your turn, you may flip this tile, which means flip this back over, to flip a switch off anywhere in the castle. Maybe that all doesn't make sense to you quite yet, but once you've explained the games to people, those powers will obviously mean something. His is actually pretty good.
There's Leroy.
There's Leroy. I'll put him over here.
And I picked Destiny, so I put her over there. So, alright, so that's everything for setup. Alright, so on your turn, you're going to randomly decide who goes first. We'll say Mickey goes first, and then you just go clockwise around the table. The things that you do on your turn in this order is draw 2 cards, take actions, and then roll the dice. So your turn just consists of those 3 things, and we'll talk about each of them. So
yep, pretty simple.
First thing, draw 2 cards. What Mickey's going to do is draw the top 2 cards of his deck, and I think you read them to the other players and lay them face up.
Yep. So, and why Jeb is saying that the rules say read them to the other players, place them face up, is remember, this is a cooperative game, so you guys can talk about, hey, is this power going to be really good this turn? I think you should do this. I don't want to do that. Whatever. Ultimately, you get to control your card, but that's the reason why you read them out loud and let everybody know. So 2 cards that I flipped over. The first one says, swap the locations of 2 switches anywhere in the castle. And then my second one says, choose 2 players. You may choose yourself. So I can include myself in one of those players. Each chosen player may flip the switch off in their location. Alright. What do those mean? Well, if I'm in a room, that's my location. That's pretty self-explanatory. Switches are the switches. And then, you know, switching things around would be move this switch here, put this switch back where it came from. So that's an example of how a couple of these cards work. Now, after discussion and everything, we decide which one I'm going to take, put the other one off in like a discard pile, put this one in front of me. I don't have to use it immediately, I just have to use it on my turn.
And one quick thing is when your deck is used up, you're going to shuffle all of your action cards in the discard and place them face down to make a new deck. So after you draw your 2 cards, you get to take your actions. You get 3 actions on your turn.
Mm-hmm.
And one quick thing to note is that you can use your card's power at any time before, during, or after these actions.
Right.
So the first action that you can take is move. And
so since I'm outside the castle, like I pointed out earlier when I explained the board, there's only 3 entrances. So I can come in here, I can come in over where Jeb is, or I can come in here. You have to come in through a window. And moving into the castle is a move. So moving around is like per room. So 1, and then to move into this room would be 2, but I can't do that yet. Why? Because there's a door. So another action I can take, Jeb, is what?
unlock door.
Whew. Unlock a door, just take the door off. Now it's unlocked. Okay, so that now I could end it by moving 1 more. That would be all 3 of my moves. But what are some of the other things I can do?
A couple things on movement.
Yep.
Is you are not able to optionally move out of the castle.
Okay.
And then you cannot move into or through a room with the professor.
So professor's over there. So if I was here and no doors were there, I could not step in this room unless I had an ability that allowed me to do so.
So other actions you can do are flipping switches.
Okay, so if I'm in this room, maybe instead of opening the door, I wanted to, well, let's pretend it's on, obviously. For an action, I can turn it off. That's another action.
Pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
Alright, and then the last action you can do is rescue a treasure.
Okay, so if I am in this room, and that's the buzzsaws, and if I look around the board and all the buzzsaws are off, so first of all, I just find a buzzsaw. I know that there's 3 of them. Okay, let's find the other 2.
There's one there.
There's one there. Oh, that one's on, and that one's on. But if this was off, if both of those were off and this was off, I'm standing here, I can collect this as long as all the buzzsaws are off. And here's what happens. I collect it. These will come off. This goes into the saved treasure pile. And now, don't ever forget to do this. Now all of the switches that were on this treasure turn back on. So all the buzzsaws would be back on now. So that's a collect the treasure action.
And once it's collected, you're going to draw a room card and flip the next treasure. And like we did in setup, you're going to...
Workshop?
That one's in the workshop, so over there. And then
Take
just
take the tab that you just took. It's 45 minutes away. And so that would go there.
Yeah.
And that's how you'd set up a new treasure. Once you, like, once one's cleared. So as you can see, more randomization on, like, where the stuff's going to end up. And it won't end up where it started because you have a discard pile.
Right. And the last thing you do on your turn is roll the dice. So after Mickey's used his 3 actions, and don't forget that your card ability is not in action. You get that in addition to
Yeah, you get an addition. And I didn't use this one, but I took the one that said swap locations. I can't even remember if you can ignore them or if you have to use the ability.
I don't think you have to use it.
Okay, so this is any, but I don't know that we've ever had a turn where we didn't use it for something. They're usually that good. So so in this case, from a strategy standpoint, what I would have tried to do is move on switch to either in the same room as somebody or really, really close that I knew they could get to it in relation to whatever treasure we were trying to acquire.
Right.
Then that would get discarded, and then I would roll for the professor. And we roll his die, try not to do the... I was just doing that for you guys to see. I would do that off the board normally. So I got the clock. Oh, there's an order, isn't there? Is it him first or clock first?
Him first.
Alright, so he goes first, so it's the 2 white die. Alright, so we look at that, and in this case, the professor does not move this time. It's the treasure that moves, or the chip that moves closer to him. So it's a red, 5. I look at the red, and I move it counterclockwise towards the, whatever, the clock marker. Alright, and then this moves the clock marker 1. So essentially, it just moved 10 minutes against us.
Yep.
Alright.
So the on the black die, there is a
space
5-minute and a 10-minute one.
Oh yeah, on this.
Or no, sorry, you were right. On the black die, there's one space.
You're at 2 space. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that, and then let's talk about the other sides of the professor dice real quick.
So we're gonna make up a scenario because you really need to see how the professor moves. So we're gonna say we're even gonna do a great big one here. So let's say he got this and the red. All right. So, and let's say this is a really bad roll right here. This is what Jeb would have rolled.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what happens. Jeb even cleared some stuff for us. Okay, so Professor goes first. We'll put this off to the side just for a second. And he's got 3 moves, 1, 2, 3, and he's gonna go through red. So what that means is you look in the room that you are and find the carpet. Right? Oh, a red carpet. He moves into that room. Check the room.
Well, first thing, if he went through an empty doorway,
yep.
he locks the door pretty much.
Right.
Or closes it.
So you're checking the room, and like Jeb said, the first thing you check for, did I come through an empty doorway? I did. I lock it. Next thing, check to see if there's somebody in the room.
There's me.
Right. And if they don't have an ability that says they get to sit there, and I keep saying that because there is an ability that lets people into the same room, he gets kicked out of the castle. So he's kicked out. She's kicked out. And
say that was off when he entered.
Right. And if that was off when he entered, he turns it back on. And then that was just his first move. Now he looks for the red carpet in this room because remember he's moving through red and he goes into here. That's already on.
Doors are already closed.
And all the doors are already closed, so he doesn't do anything. Then looks his last move, red carpet, moves through. That's off. So he's going to turn it on, check the door. He went through that. That was locked. The rest of them are already locked anyways. But if these were open, he wouldn't lock them yet. He has to go through them.
Right.
Okay? And that would be the end of his movement. And then in this case, 2 here, this would have moved 2 more forward. Okay. Now the last scenario that can happen on the professor die is the secret door, secret passage can be rolled. Now if it's a secret passage, what happens is you check the color, again, always check the color, and then the professor moves to the room with that color treasure. So in this case, you find the red treasure, which is the crown jewels. He secret doors over to that, and that's where he ends his movement.
He actually locks all the doors into the room, in the room that he enters. He turns on all the switches, and he kicks anybody out.
Does he lock... Is that always, or just for that one?
Just for the secret.
The secret door, like, lets him do extra stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And in this case, let's pretend that was still there, so we can show you one last thing. Once this hits the flip symbol on the clock, collectively, you get to decide who gets to flip their character card over. Everybody does not get to flip their character card over. So collectively, you should probably try to plan and see whose power as a group, at least at this point in time, is most useful.
Yep.
Or even who, maybe right this second somebody has a more useful power, but overall you guys are like, wait, throughout the game,
Yeah.
I'd like to have that on earlier in the game. But that choice is totally up to you. So at this point, you would decide, somebody would flip their card over, they'd have that top ability all the time until they flipped it over again, and they'd have their bottom ability once, and then they'd have to flip it back over. So that's what happens when you hit the flip symbol. If the clock token hits a treasure,
or if the treasure moves back into it.
Right. If they are on the same space, no matter how it happens, what happens is the professor takes that color treasure and scores it. So in this case, he gets the green comes off, and it goes on his side as one of his treasures. So it goes on a lost treasure, and then you refill the treasures just as before. Flip it over. We got the ballroom this time.
Dead Sea Scrolls.
And the ballroom is
All the way over
orange,
there.
so that means it's over here. I'll put the one green on the 45, and now here's a nice example of, I'm not even going to try to math, so 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. Alright, and so that's 45 minutes away from here. So remember, when he starts moving and you roll over, you flip a card over, it's not 45 on the clock, it's 45 from him.
Right.
Because you would never win this game. If you watch a little bit of the gameplay, you'll see. If you had to put that right here,
Nope.
plus all the lowest number is 30 anyways.
Yeah.
So you would never be able to get it close to it anyhow if they did it the other way. So anyhow.
And the way the game works is like Mickey would go first. He'd draw 2, take his actions, roll the dice. Then the next person will draw 2, take their actions, roll the dice, and you just keep going around the table until the end game condition. And there's 2 ways the game can end.
Badly and worse.
Yeah. So if the heroes are able to save 4 treasures, then you win the game.
Right.
And if the professor steals 4 treasures, then you lose the game. So that's pretty much, it's a really simple end condition.
Yep. Not too, when one of these sides is full, that's who wins the game.
Yep.
So anyways, hopefully, that made sense. The mechanics really are not that difficult, but if we went too fast or if it seemed overwhelming and you want to see a little bit more, watch 10 minutes at least.
That should get you a few turns
That should get you a few turns in. You can see, you everything will probably click. You'll be fine. And this rule book is well written. You shouldn't have any problems if you need to consult, like maybe what does the secret passage do again?
Right.
Like, it would be that kind of thing that wouldn't maybe be clear. So anyways, we'll be back in a minute. We'll do a 3-player game with Will, and you'll get to see us play through Professor Evil and the Citadel of Time, and will we collect all our treasures?
Only time will tell.
Same bat time, same bat channel. Oh, Jeb made a funny again! I missed it!